Hey everyone, it's me, Rami Marks, your Tangled Yogi out here in Northern California. Welcome to the Aqua Showgirl Zentangle class. I'm so excited to bring this to you. I'm about to teach it for the Napa Public Library, and I thought you might like to try it as well. So let's talk about the things that you're going to need for class. I'm going to be working with a Micron PN pen, a Jelly Roll 10. You know me, I'm a Prismacolor girl, so grab your Prismacolor pencils or your favorite color pencil set. I'm also going to be working with a blending stump or a tortillon, but if you don't have one of these, you can use a Q-tip in lieu of it and it'll be just fine. You'll want to have a graphite pencil for building your string and also for doing some of the graphite work that we're going to be doing for shading. Now, many of you know that I have my own tile line at the Tangled Yogi shop. You can go over to tangledyogi.com and find out about all the classes that I teach and the materials that I have. But today I'm going to be working with the Genesis tile. If you don't have the Genesis tile, you can just go ahead and use your sketchbook and draw a square that's 4.5 by 4.5 inches, and you are going to have a blast with this class. All right, well, let's get started with Aqua Showgirl. So let's begin by making our string. You can see I've got my regular pencil here, my graphite pencil, and I'm just going to start by creating 4 corners here. You're going to see I'm going to do some dots in each corner. Just the regular old-fashioned Zentangle way. And then you're going to see me just go ahead and connect the dots with my graphite pencil. Turning the tile to make it easy for my hands here. And then once we have our square in the middle of the space, we're going to go ahead and extend our lines outwards. You're going to see me just go ahead and extend my lines outward here. And then I'm going to turn my tile and I'm going to do it again. So all I'm doing is just extending my lines outward like so. And you can see that my lines aren't perfect and yours shouldn't be either. It should just be however it works for you. So that's the basic string here. So go ahead and do yours and I'm going to finish up mine. So I've got my basic string in here, and now I'm going to do what we call an internal aura, and it's exactly what you think it is. It's an echo line on the inside of the piece. And so you can see that I'm just going through here and putting in my dots again, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to connect my dots to create a frame that's going to work inside of the piece. Now once I have that frame inside of the piece, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to divide the space. And let's go ahead and zoom in on this just a little bit. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and divide the space into 4 squares. So I'm just going to go ahead and right in the middle make a line, and you're going to see me turn my tile and do it again to create those 4 squares. So go ahead and finish up yours, and then when we come back, we're going to learn a tangle called Showgirl. Okay, so we're going to learn our first tangle today, and this is called Showgirl. And Showgirl was one of the first tangles that I learned as a Zentangler. And the way that this works is we're going to just start by having Showgirl in a box. So I'm just going to go ahead and make my square here. And in the center of the box, I'm going to make a circle. And you're going to see that I'm going to make a teardrop shape that goes up, and then I'm going to turn my tile clockwise here, and let's just make sure that this doesn't get too blurry. And we're going to come up and go again and make another teardrop shape, turning the tile, and I always turn clockwise here, making another teardrop right here, and then finally one more right over here. So you can see that we've got these really nice petals going all the way around. And then what happens with Showgirl is we make these teardrop shapes that echo off of the last one. So you can see that I'm just going to build off of that until I hit the border there, and then I'm going to go to the next one and I'm going to do the same thing. So all I'm doing is echoing the line to the edge, turning the tile, echoing, and coming to the edge, and turning again. Super fun, super easy. And if I had asked you to do that a couple of minutes ago, you would have looked at me like my hair was on fire. But now you can see that that is Showgirl. Okay, so let's come back to our composition here. We're going to take that away and bring this back in. And you can see that I've left everything in pencil, but now that we know where we're going, we're just going to start to play here. So I'm going to pick up my micron pen, and in the center here I'm going to make a circle that is a little bit bigger than the size of a pea. So you can see there's my circle that's a little bit more than the size of a pea here. And I'm just going to start by creating a little bit of a flux-like shape or a teardrop shape right there. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start to build off of that, and you're going to see me use this line to build off of. So I'm going to come in, touch that line, and then I'm going to drop right back down again. I'm going to come up, touch the line, come back down. Now you can see I've got my border up here, and I'm going to let these start to come back a little bit. See how that's touching the edge right there and coming back. So that's how I'm going to handle Showgirl in this piece. And if you want, you can even add a little petal right there. I'm going to turn my tile clockwise here, and I'm going to do it all over again. So here's where we get into the repetition or the zen of it. So you're going to see me come to the side of the circle here. I'm going to come up and over and drop back in. Coming up a little bit, touch the edge, and drop back in. Coming up a little bit, touch the edge, and come back in. Now you can see that I'm going to have to drop down because I can't do it over here. So I'm just going to go ahead and drop in. And one more time. Now you can see that I can add one more petal right in there. And you know me, I can't leave well enough alone, so I'll bring it in. So let's do it again, turning the tile clockwise, coming in, creating that teardrop shape. Come up to the top, over, and back and in. Come up to the top, over, and back and in. Now you can see I can't go any further, so I'm dropping back to create that teardrop shape. Coming in again. And one more. I'm going to turn the tile one last time, starting with that teardrop shape, coming up, touch the edge, and come back in. Coming up, touch the edge, come back in. Up, touch the edge, and in. Over here. And I think I can get one more out of that. And one more right in here. And you can see that that gives us a really cool look. It's a really fun tangle. So go ahead and finish up yours, and then when we come back, we're going to work with the border. So you can see that all of the petals are touching the edge. And as I zoom in here, you can also see that we have a little bit of these interstice-like shapes that are a little bit strange. You can see them right here and right there. So what we're going to do is we're going to ink in the border first, and I'm just going to come to the edge and ink in the border, and I'm taking my time with it, turning the piece on its side, and coming over to the other side. Now once I have that, I'm going to go find those weird shapes again. So these are the interstices, and you're going to see me take my pen and just puddle in those shapes. So I'm just pooling in the ink into those places. And you can see that I'm really taking my time with it. And remember, with these pens, these micron pens, the lighter you go, the more the ink flows. So if you're pushing hard on your pen, back off a little bit. And you can already see that just by inking in those spaces, it's starting to make those petals really come forward and give them a graphic feel. Turning the tile to make it work for your hands here. And I tend to work in little circles, so if you want to work in little circles too, that tends to make that background disappear. Gives a nice even distribution of that ink. So you can see the difference between here and here. So go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine. And then when we come back, we're going to start to work with our borders again, and we're going to start to learn a new tangle. So before we leave Showgirl, I'm going to add a little bit of detailing into the piece here. So let's go ahead and zoom in on Showgirl. And so all I'm going to do is I'm going to come inside of the petal here, and I'm going to make a line and 3 dots into each of these petals. And you can see that just by doing that little bit, it adds a little bit more of a graphic feel to the tangle itself. And some of them you may be able to get more dots into or less dots into, not to worry. It doesn't really matter. So you can see I'm just going to turn clockwise here and go again and start to create that detailing. So go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine, and then when we come back, we'll start to learn a new tangle. Have fun. So you can see that little bit has made a lot of detailing into the piece here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to continue to ink out. So I'm going to go to the outside edge here, and you can see that I'm really taking my time as I turn the page and start to ink in the border. And once I have that border inked in, I'm going to start to work in the outside edges. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to extend these lines right here. And we're going to learn a tangle called H2O Lily. And H2O Lily was brought to us by a really fun tangler named Linda Howe. And so it's H2O Lily. And H2O Lily looks a little something like this. So you have these 2 tangles, or these 2 seed-like shapes. And then we'll do another set right next to it, and it makes a fabulous border tangle here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come into the center and I'm going to make a little triangle with an aura, and another triangle with an aura. Up top in here, we're going to have these little seed-like shapes that kind of reach down off of each other to create this lily. And I'll do the same thing over here and on the other side. Inside of the leaves, we're going to do an aura, and then inside of those auras, we're going to do some slatting of the lines. So you're going to see me just create these little lines inside of those leaves. And I'll do it on both sides, and you can see how that creates a really beautiful tangle there. So let's come back to our original piece, and I'm going to bring that right back in here. And what I like to do is I always like to take a little bit of a pencil and just make a little dot right in the center so that when I'm creating a piece like this, I know where the center is. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start by creating those seed-like shapes again, and I'm going to use the center as my place to start. So you can see there's the seed-like shapes, and you can either connect them or not, it doesn't matter. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do the same thing over here. So here's another seed-like shape, and I'll let it touch the outside edge over here too. Once I have that, I'm going to come in and make the triangular-like shape. Same thing over here. And then I'll go ahead and start to make those smaller seed shapes up at the top. And then once I have that, we're just going to let them drop down on each side. Coming in and letting them touch. Same thing on the opposite side, right over here. Once I have that, I'm going to go ahead and start to create that aura inside of the seed shape. Same thing over here. And once again over here. Once you have your auras all set in, you can come in and do the lines in the center. So just take your time with your lines. When you're rushing, it tends to give you away. So you can see that I'm taking my time. I'll do the same thing on the opposite side. Just like so. Coming in over here. Doing the same. And just take your time. Turning. And just working your way through. So go ahead and finish up that one, and then when we come back, we're going to go ahead and do some on the opposite sides as well. So let's go ahead and turn the piece clockwise here. So you can see that I've now turned the piece, and I'm going to look right in here and start to make these lines long again. And then I'm going to look for center and just make a little dot so that I know where I'm going to jump off of. And then once again, I'm creating those seed-like shapes. And I'll do the same thing over here. So another seed-like shape. Connect to the corner. Once again, putting the triangle in the center. Aura the triangle. And then remember the smaller seed-like shapes. Let's go ahead and place those. So a little seed-like shape at the top. And then we're just jumping off the side with those. Coming over here, doing the same. And then once again, auraing the seeds. So coming back out, nice aura. Same thing over here. And then once again, bringing those lines into the center. Take your time with your lines. Really bringing yourself to the present moment. Same thing here. And same thing here. A lot of repetition, that's where we get into the zen of it. And so you can see when I zoom out, all the flowers are facing in towards the center flower. So as you go ahead and turn your tile, you'll always start from the inside and work your way out. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to finish these 2 blocks. You go ahead and do yours as well. Remember to relax, take a breath, and enjoy yourself. So you can see that I've had a chance to go all the way around the piece here, and it's already developing this really neat meta tangle that's surrounding Showgirl, which is really, really fun. I want to add in one more element to give this a really graphic feel. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to zoom in on this part of the border right here. And what we're going to do is we're going to start to create these auras that are around the petals. So I'm just going to start by making a little dot right in the center, and I'm going to create an aura that goes just around those 2 petals, and then I'm going to do another aura right behind that one. Now I'm going to do the same thing over here, but it's only half of an aura because we only have half of the petal there. And you can see that I'm just adding 2 lines on each side, just like so. Now once I have those in there, I'm going to come back in and I'm going to puddle in this triangle that's right here. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I want to give a nod back to that central tangle, this Showgirl that we have, and we're going to just kind of give that graphic feel back into the border that's around that middle tangle. So you can see that I'm just working my way around and starting to pool my ink into those second auras. And remember, the lighter you go, the more the ink flows, so if you're pressing hard on that pen, back off just a little bit. And there you can see that that really has a nice relationship with this. So let's do it again. I'm going to turn my tile clockwise. I'm going to make a dot in the center, and I'm going to go ahead and make that aura. And I'll do it one more time. Over here it's just 2 lines, 1 and 2. Over here just 2 lines. And then we're pooling ink in those second triangles. Remember little circles here so that that background gets canceled out. And I feel like this really just gives gravity to an area that's kind of busy. So that when I zoom out, you can see here that this really gives a nice anchoring, whereas this feels really busy over here. So I'm going to go ahead and finish my next 2. You can see that I'm already going to start to turn and go clockwise. Remember, it's just the 2 lines and then pooling it in. Okay? Have fun with that. So you can see that just by doing that little bit with the black, it's really helped that outside area to feel a little bit more anchored down. So let's go back into the center of the piece where Showgirl is. Some of you may know that I have a favorite tangle called Tipple, and I'm going to add Tipple into the center. And Tipple is just a series of circles that are attached to each other. And so all I'm doing is just starting to fill in the center with circles. And I'm going to let them build outward. And I'm just working my way around the piece and building that in. Now you may notice that there are some interstices here and there, and you can come back in and pull into where those interstices are. Those are those funny looking shapes that kind of happen in between the circles. And that will just give a little bit more gravity to the center. So I'm going to come back to the lily H2O or H2O lily, and I'm going to come into the center here, and I'm going to add a little bit of black into where the flower is. And this is also going to give a little bit more of a nod back to the center. So you can see that I'm just taking my time with that pen and starting to pool the ink into the center, just like so. Now I'm going to go all the way around the piece and do that same thing inside of each of these lilies that we have. And this is going to give it a really nice graphic feel as well. So go ahead and do yours, and I'm going to go ahead and finish up mine. Take your time and just have fun. Okay, so you can see that I've had a chance to go all the way around. One of the things that I like to do is I love to do shading with color and Zentangle. So I'm going to be working with the Prismacolor pencils, and I'm going to be working with the Aquamarine color, and this is PC 905. I'm also going to be working with PC 938, which is their white, and I use that generally for blending to get my colors to smooth out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by coming into the center of the piece back to our original tangle, and you can see that my pencil is really well sharpened up. The reason for this is that when we're working inside of a piece, we're not going to be working on the tip of the pencil, we're actually going to be working on the side of the pencil. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to very softly start to shade this in. So I'm just going to take the side of the pencil and start to work in a little circle. And as I do this, you can see that the touch of the pencil is really, really light. So it's really, really soft little circles to fill in the space. And you can see that by working on the side of the pencil instead of working on the tip of the pencil, we're able to fill in the space in a more efficient manner. So I'm just kind of diving in and filling that up. And I can see that I've missed this outside petal with that detail work. I'll go back to that later. So once I have that area filled in, you can see that it's already starting to give this a little bit of dimension. So I'm going to start to come in and give a little bit of shading behind each little flower here. So we started with a really light touch in here, and now I'm going to come into the centerpiece and start to press a little bit harder on that pencil, and you'll notice that it's going to give me a little bit of a richer teal kind of color. I'm going to come in over here, and you're going to see that I'm going to start to develop a little bit of a shadow behind this petal that's right here. And if you hear the sound of wind in the video here, you'll know that I'm actually camping as I create this little video for you all. So you are hearing the breezes of the Sierra Mountains here. So just little circles, and letting that come in. Pressing just a little bit harder, and notice how that's starting to develop this really nice dimension. Same thing in here. I'm not pressing hard. I would say that this is a medium tension or medium pressure. And once again, right over here. And for this last one, I'll do the same thing. So you can see that that really brings a fabulous kind of sense of dimension to the piece that wasn't there before. And you can see that I'm kind of playing around, trying to bring a nice richness of color to this. Now, as you're working with this, I'm going to come in and zoom in on it. You can see that there's a little bit of a textural feel in that color pencil. So I've got my white pencil in my hand here, and for those of you who want to do some blending, you can see that I'm starting to do some soft blending where that darker blue is meeting the lighter blue. And you can see that it gives a very buttery-like quality to the piece. The same thing's going to happen on the other side. So you're going to see me come in here, right where that light blue is. I'm just bringing that white pencil in, and you can see that it almost gives it a watercolor-like feel. And then I'm going to start to dip into where the darker color is, and you'll notice that it really gives a richness to that color. So you can look at the difference between here and here. Notice how this is a little bit richer and this is a little bit more textural. There's no right or wrong way to do this. There's just both ways. And so if you tend to like it without doing the blending, you can keep it without the blending. For myself, I really enjoy the way blended colors look, and I also like the smoother texture of the color when I'm doing this. So you can see that I'm just going to work through there just like so. Now, a lot of the time in Zentangle we talk about repetition being part of the zen of it, right? And so in here, in coloring and in shading, there's a lot of zen in that because it is repetitious. And so I want you to just really take your time and enjoy yourself while you're working with color. It can be a really magical experience, and once you start getting really comfortable with color, you'll find that it actually brings a very relaxed feel to the mind. And certain colors can be more soothing than others, and some colors may actually be more of an expression of how you're feeling when you're creating. So if you're using warmer colors, you might be feeling a little bit more vibrant, and if you're using cooler colors like these, you might be in a more chilled out place. So you're able to express yourself in a different way that you might not normally be able to do when you're working with black and white. So you can see everything that I did there, and I'm just going to start to carry that into these next 4 quadrants. Take your time with this and have fun. So you can see I've had a chance to go all the way around and finish up that central piece. Isn't that pretty? It's got a really nice feel to it. So I'm going to do something that we call carrying color. And carrying color is where you take the piece from the center and you start to bring it in the outward areas, and that gives a little bit of cohesiveness to a composition when you're working on it. Oftentimes Zentangles can look very busy, and it can actually be a little agitating to look at. So what I love about color is that it can really be this equalizer that calms a Zentangle down. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to work around the flower pieces, and you'll see that I'm just going to work on the tip of the pencil here and start to just dust in a little bit of blue right around where the flowers are. And you can see that I'm going to just jump into where those little triangular pieces are in here as well. I'll do the same thing on the opposite side, so I'm just coming in and dusting in that blue, jumping into where the triangles are. And then once I have that, I'm going to go to where the edges are, and I'm going to push a little bit harder right on the edge, right in here and right over here. And that's going to give a little bit of depth into those corners. You're going to see me just zoom in here, and I'm going to start to blend in those areas. So you can see that there's a little bit of a textural feel to this. Now I'm going to come back in and just add a little bit of heaviness right here and here. And then right as that darker piece is meeting the lighter piece, I'm going to do little circles. And you can see that that just starts to give that buttery feel to those pencils and really starts to soften it up. Same thing over here and same thing over here, so that it starts to give a nod back to the center, which is nice. I'm also going to take this little triangle that I have in here, and I'm going to start to do a little dusting of blue on each side, and you'll notice that I'm going to leave a little white in the center for sheen, and then I'll do a little bit of a heavier press right here and a little press right here. There goes that wind again, getting those Sierra breezes while we're doing our Zentangles. And you can see that that also gives it a little nod back, so that when I zoom out here, look at how pretty that is. It has a nice relationship from the inside out. So go ahead and do yours. I'm going to go ahead and do mine. So you can see that this is really coming along, and having that blue on the outside edge like that is a really nice nod back to the center. So we're going to start to change our colors here, and I've picked up PC1002. This is like a yellowed orange. It's a really nice one. And then I also have in my hand magenta, which is PC930. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to focus in on these H2O lilies that we have down here. I'm going to come in with that yellowed orange that I have and just start to dust in a little bit of that yellow first. And you can see that I'm going very, very lightly. Now once I've got that yellowed orange in there, I'm going to start to pick up the magenta and give this a little bit of a shadow right behind the flower. Once I have that, we're going to use a different technique for shading here. So I'm going to pick back up that yellowed orange, and I'm just going to start to dust right where that red is meeting the yellow, and you can see that I'm doing little circles to try to break up the line of demarcation. Now what this does is, because that yellow is so waxy and that red is so heavily pigmented, it actually starts to drag around some of that red and give it kind of a blurry feel. And I really love that look when I'm working with a piece. So let's do this again. We're going to come in with the yellowed orange first and start to dust in a little bit of that color, and then once we have the yellowed orange in, we're going to come in with the magenta and start to do just a little soft dusting of a shadow right behind the flower here. And then once I have that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start to drag around the color to get that really neat blurred feel behind the flower. And you can see that that really starts to give a vibrancy. So go ahead and try that out on yours, and even if you want to, you could come back in with some of the white and start to make a little bit of that yellow a little bit more creamy in its nature, so that it's not textural, it has a real softness to it. Have fun with that. So you can see that I've had a chance to go all the way around with that yellow and magenta, and really it's made that pattern come alive and become a little bit more electric. I'm going to take those same colors and start to bring them into the center here, and you're going to see me start with the yellowed orange first, and I'm just going to dust about halfway through that center. And I know some of you are going, oh my god, she's going over the lines. Yes, I'm going over the lines. Let yourself go back to your inner 4-year-old and go over the lines here. And then what I'm going to do is let's zoom in on that a little bit. I'm going to pick up that magenta and start to just dust the edge of that with a little bit of the magenta, just to get a little bit of a nod back to the outside areas here. We want our eye to kind of dance around the piece. So I'm going to pick back up that yellow and start to blur out where the magenta is meeting the yellow and give it a softer transition. And you can see that that really gives us a nice dimension, so that when I zoom back out again, look at how the center is now reacting to the outside edges. That's all part of the composition and making it feel like it has relation to each other. Okay, so have some fun with that, and then when we come back, we're going to start to introduce one more color into the piece. So one of my favorite colors in the Prismacolor set is the lime peel green, and I'm going to be working with this. This is PC1005, and I want to define the outside edges of our H2O lily here. So I'm just coming in and starting to dust the outside of the leaves here, and you're going to notice that I'm going to leave a little bit of white right in the center. So I'll come over here and dust in here. And I'll do the same thing on the opposite side. So I'm just coming in and dusting here and here. And when I say dust, it really means I'm just going very, very lightly with that pencil. Now once I have that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to push a little bit harder on that pencil, and you'll start to see that it gives this a little bit of a darker green so that we get a little bit more into the tips here. Same thing over here, and same thing over here. And that way we're going to get a little bit of electricity. Now I'm going to come back in with some of that white and start to blur out the colors here. You might hear the wind in the background. Little Sierra breezes here. And I'm going to start to just blur those out. So I'm going to do that all the way around the piece. You go ahead and do yours as well. Okay, so we are getting into a little bit of our end of the piece here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to pick back up my graphite pencil here, and what I want to do is I want to add just a little bit of gray into the piece. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come into these petals right in here, and I'm going to do a dusting of the graphite into each of the petals here in the tip and down at the bottom here. Now I happen to have my tortillon handy, but if you don't have one of these, you could use a Q-tip to help you blend. And you can see that I'm blurring out the graphite pieces and starting to give this a little bit of a smoky feel. Oop, there goes the wind again. So I'm also going to come in and I'm going to add a little dusting of that gray right into the centerpiece, and you'll notice that I'm going to just blur that out as well, just so that I get a little bit of softness. Now one thing that I can do with this is I can come right back in and give a little bit more of a press to get a little bit of darkness in there and start to blur that out. And then the same thing over here, starting to get a little bit more darkness in at the tips and blur that out as well. So you can see that that's going to give it a little bit of depth and a little bit of interest, so that when I zoom out you can see over in here this has got a lot of interest, whereas over here it's a little bit more flat. Now I'll even come over onto the sides here and just start to dust in the sides and do a little bit of blending right in here and right over here. So go ahead and try it on yours. I'm going to finish it up on mine, and then when we come back we're going to do some finishing touches. Okay, so you can see that I've had a chance to go all the way around, and I've actually picked up my white Jelly Roll pen. Some of you may have this pen. This is the white Jelly Roll, and I happen to have a 10 in my hand. And I'm just going to go around and add a little dot into my flowers here, just to give them a little bit of interest. You can see that I'm just putting that in there, and I'm always amazed at how one little dot can make so much of a difference in a piece, which is really, really fun. So go ahead and do yours, and then when we come back we're going to work on our chop. So we've come to the end of our class here, and I'm just going to go ahead and put my initial into the piece. And I always like to hide my initial inside of a piece here. And in this situation, it's kind of hard to do that, but I'm going to go ahead and just put an R right here in this corner, since that's my initial. And your chop is just your way of saying that you have completed the piece and you've let go of the meditation. I'm going to bring back in my original that I had here, and you know, whenever I come back and do a class, it's always a little bit different every time I do it, and I like to think that maybe they're better, but they're just different. And so I'm excited to bring this to you today, and I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please go ahead and give the video a thumbs up, or even better, hit the subscribe button at the top of your screen on our YouTube channel, and you'll be notified every time I add a class. So that's it for me. I'm Rami Marks, your Tangled Yogi. Thanks so much for joining us today. I look forward to seeing you in class soon. Bye for now.